Everyone knew that the wealthy heir, Anthony, was deeply in love with me. Until that year, I was kidnapped. At that time, Anthony was being photographed celebrating the birthday of a famous rising actress. When the kidnappers called to demand ransom, he remained completely indifferent. Jennifer, staging something like this just to force me back, do you really think it's interesting? Without a trace of hesitation, Anthony hung up the phone. In the end, I fell into the sea and disappeared without a trace. 5 years later, having lost my memory, I married the man who saved me, had a child with him, and returned to the country. The one who came to pick him up was none other than Anthony. Bro, you finally decided to come back. Then he suddenly saw me standing behind my husband. His eyes reddened. Jennifer, I knew you were still alive. When he noticed that I had linked arms with my husband and was holding the hand of a little girl, his expression darkened instantly. Who are they to you? I looked at the unfamiliar man in front of me and asked in confusion. Sir, have we met before? Chapter 1. Everyone said I was incredibly lucky. The wealthy heir, Anthony, was hopelessly in love with me. He had pursued me relentlessly for 3 years. On the night I agreed to date him, he set off fireworks across the entire city, grand and extravagant. Anthony had always loved to have fun. He was the center of attention wherever he went, and no one had ever seen him truly care about anyone. But after getting together with me, he stopped going to clubs, stopped riding motorcycles, and stopped hanging out with his old friends, because he had promised me that he would devote himself entirely to me. So he reined himself in, came home early every day, and stayed by my side. Everyone was betting on when he would grow tired of the relationship. Yet for 3 years, he treated me the same as always. Just last month, he even proposed to me. We had been together for so long, everyone thought we would end up together, myself included. But suddenly, he asked to break up. Chapter 2. It was a morning half a month ago. I helped Anthony fix his tie and placed a gentle kiss on his face. Smiling softly, I said, "Go to work." Just like before, Anthony kissed my cheek as well. Then, in a casual tone, he said, "Jennifer, let's break up." The way he said it was so ordinary, as if he were commenting on the nice weather. I froze, thinking I had misheard. "What did you say?" Anthony repeated what he had just said. "Why?" This time, there was a trace of indescribable tenderness in his voice. But that tenderness wasn't for me, it was for another girl. I've fallen in love with someone else. She's different from you. She's lively, like a flame. I couldn't listen anymore. That's enough. Do you still remember your promise? You said you would love me for a lifetime and never betray me. Anthony laughed, his tone filled with mockery. Jennifer, how can you be so naive? You actually believe what a man says? During the 3 years Anthony was with me, he gradually took over the family business. He shed his youthful recklessness and became decisive and ruthless. Every move he made carried an air of undeniable nobility. He was the kind of person who stood out at first glance in a crowd. And this time, the same decisiveness he once used on others, he used it on me. Chapter 3. After saying that, Anthony left and never returned to our home again. Thinking about it carefully, there had been signs of Anthony's cheating long ago. Not long before that, he had started staying out all night. He began to carry the scent of another woman's perfume, as if he were slowly turning back into the carefree, reckless playboy he used to be. During that time, I kept receiving harassing messages from unknown numbers. I blocked one, and another would send more. Do you even know? Anthony told me you're like a dead fish in bed, completely boring. Unlike me, I'm passionate like fire. He's obsessed with me. Can you stop holding Anthony back and just break up with him already? He and I are the perfect match. You don't even need to bring it up. Anthony loves me so much. I told him that the one who isn't loved is the real third wheel, and I'm willing to stay with him without a title. Guess what he said? He said he'd break up with you. He loves me. He would never let me suffer even a little. I had suspected Anthony of being unfaithful. I once showed him those messages and asked what was going on. Anthony looked utterly impatient. Jennifer, I'm already exhausted from work. Can you stop being so paranoid and questioning me over this kind of pointless harassment? Over the past 3 years, he had played the role of the reformed bad boy perfectly, even proposing to me just a month ago. I thought it was just because his career had taken off, and he had more social obligations, that's why he had changed. I even felt a bit guilty toward him. After all, he had treated me so well these past few years. I shouldn't have disturbed him over a few anonymous harassment messages. And just moments ago, that person sent me another message. He already broke up with you, right? I told you long ago, Anthony loves me the most. He'd never let me suffer. If you have any dignity left, pack your things and get out. Don't make me come and throw you out myself. A couple of days later, Anthony's lawyer came to see me and handed me a thick stack of documents. Mr. Anthony said that you've been with him for 3 years, and he won't let you walk away empty-handed. As long as you sign this, the villa you're living in and $30 million in breakup compensation will all be yours. I murmured absent-mindedly, my voice hollow. What a generous way of not letting me suffer. Chapter 4. A few days later, paparazzi captured Anthony spending an enormous sum to purchase a pink diamond worth over $100 million, gifting it to the famous rising actress, Susie. When reporters asked Anthony about his relationship with Susie, a smile appeared in his eyes. For now, we're still just friends. Anthony had clearly been with Susie for quite some time. He probably didn't want others to label her as the other woman who broke us apart, so he made a grand show of pursuing her all over again. Oh, the reporter said meaningfully, there have always been rumors that you're quite devoted to your fiancée. Aren't you afraid she'll be upset? Anthony paused for a moment before replying. We've already broken up. That was just the kind of person Anthony was. When he treated someone well, he did it wholeheartedly and made sure the whole world knew. The comment section under the news was filled with blessings. Ah, Anthony finally broke up with that cold, iceberg-like fiancé of his. The heir and our Susie are a much better match. Exactly. Jennifer's family has long declined. How could she ever be worthy of young Master Anthony? Even Susie's fans flooded my social media with comments. I heard you're still living in Anthony's house. You've already broken up. Can you stop being so shameless and clinging to him? Yeah, just get out already. When our Susie moves in, she'll be disgusted if she sees you. No way, you're not actually that thick-skinned, are you? I completely gave up on Anthony and signed the breakup agreement. After that, I called my teacher, Edward, a world-renowned violinist both at home and abroad. Teacher, is your friend's orchestra still looking for people? It's only missing you. Weren't you unwilling to come because you couldn't bear to leave Anthony? He had recognized my talent and invited me multiple times to join his friend's orchestra for further training, but I had always refused because I didn't want to leave Anthony. We broke up. My teacher wasn't surprised at all. Good riddance. That brat was never any good. And he was holding back your career. I've got plenty of outstanding young talents here. Young, handsome, all better than Anthony. When you come, I'll introduce you to a few. His cheerful tone lifted my mood, and I agreed. After leaving Anthony, I realized my world was still vast. With my future arranged, I finally had a good night's sleep, the first since he had asked to break up. The next morning, I woke up to a news notification on my phone. The night before, Anthony had celebrated Susie's birthday, setting off fireworks across the entire city once again, grand and spectacular. Later, Anthony was seen holding Susie as they entered a hotel, and they never came out. In the photos, Anthony looked carefree and spirited, his eyes full of warmth when he looked at Susie. He had never liked carrying my bags, yet now he casually held a Chanel bag in his hand. Even though I had already made up my mind to leave him, my eyes still welled up with tears. Fireworks are dazzling and magnificent, but they vanish in an instant, just like Anthony's love for me. Chapter 5. After pulling myself together, I headed to the airport. Life is unpredictable. I thought I was about to begin a new chapter of my life, but on the way to the airport, I was kidnapped. When I woke up again, my hands and feet were tightly bound, my mouth stuffed so I couldn't call for help. I was at the edge of a cliff. The sea wind howled, cutting against my skin. One of the kidnappers saw that I was awake and called Anthony. Anthony, right? Your fiancée is in our hands. If you want her to live, transfer $50 million in cash. On the other end, Anthony remained indifferent. Jennifer, staging something like this just to force me back. Do you really think it's interesting? Without hesitation, he hung up. The light in my eyes had lit up the moment he answered the call, and slowly went out when he coldly hung up. Anthony thought all of this was my doing, that I had staged everything to force him back from Susie's embrace. The kidnapper was stunned. Wasn't it said that Anthony dotes on his woman like his life depends on it? What kind of reaction is that, boss? Did we grab the wrong person? The scar-faced man frowned. No, she's definitely Anthony's fiancée, Jennifer. They weren't fools. After looking things up online, they quickly figured out the truth. That bastard changed his heart, now we grabbed the wrong person. The scar-faced man said. Tony, call Anthony on video. Let him see what's happening to Jennifer, boss. That jerk already moved on. He's probably still in some other woman's bed. A video call won't change anything. The scar-faced man ground his teeth. They were together for 3 years. I don't believe he'll just ignore Jennifer completely. Tony called again. Rejected. Called again. Rejected. Called once more, this time. Anthony picked up. His expression was impatient. Jennifer, are you done yet? Are you addicted to this act or something? His hair was slightly messy. His shirt loosely open, revealing several obvious hickeys on his collarbone, like someone marking their territory. Behind him was a hotel room. On the large bed, clothes were scattered everywhere. Someone seemed to whisper something in his ear. His tone immediately softened. Be good. I'll be done here in a moment. The camera frame was small. I couldn't see the person beside him clearly, only a small red mole near her ear. If it wasn't Susie, then who else could it be? At a moment when my life was on the line, it no longer mattered who Anthony was with. I only hoped that, for the sake of our 3 years together, he would believe me just once and save me. Tony dragged me to the edge of the cliff. We're real kidnappers, not actors. Transfer $50 million to our account now, or we'll make sure your woman dies without a trace. Anthony hesitated. Then a woman's mocking voice came from beside him. Jennifer, where did you find these actors? They're really committed to your little performance. Disgust flashed across Anthony's face. Jennifer, I stopped loving you a long time ago. Your pathetic act won't work on me. That's right. The woman added smugly. Anthony loves me. He already broke up with you. Can you stop clinging to him? You're really embarrassing. Her words enraged the kidnapper. He shoved me even closer to the edge. I told you, we're not actors. We're not playing along with you. The sea wind whipped my clothes violently. I felt like a trapped bird, ready to fall at any moment. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at Anthony, shaking my head desperately. I'm not acting. Can you believe me just this once? I'm still young. I still have a future ahead of me. I don't want to die in the cold, dark sea. Seeing this, Susie let out a soft laugh. Jennifer, with acting like that, it'd be a shame if you didn't become an actress. The disgust in Anthony's eyes deepened. Jennifer, I hate being made a fool of. The way you are now, it makes me sick. All right, Anthony, Susie said, clinging to his arm coquettishly. Don't waste time on them. You promised to take me shopping later. Anthony kissed her cheek. His tone, so different from before, was filled with gentle affection. How could I forget something that matters to you? Chapter 6. The two of them openly flaunted their affection, as if no one else existed, completely ignoring the kidnappers. The kidnappers grew even angrier. Do you believe I'll really throw your woman into the sea? Anthony sneered. Go ahead. Then, exactly, Susie added, fanning the flames. Stop talking and do it already. You look like a clown. The scar-faced man finally understood. Anthony truly had no feelings left for me. There was no way they would get any ransom from him. He gestured for Tony to hang up the call and release me. They were after money, not lives. But Tony had already been provoked by Anthony's words. You're the one who told me to do it. Don't regret it. The next second, Tony pushed me off the cliff. In the corner of my vision, I saw the mocking smile still lingering on Anthony's lips suddenly freeze, his expression turning into one of disbelief, his eyes splitting wide in shock. In the air, I heard his hoarse, desperate cries of Jennifer. Or maybe I had imagined it. I fell into the sea. It felt as if all my organs had shattered. The pain unbearable. The seawater was freezing. As my body sank, my vision slowly darkened. The air in my lungs grew thinner and thinner until I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in a hospital, my entire body wrapped tightly like a mummy. Sitting beside me was a handsome man. He was reading, his demeanor calm and composed. My movement caught his attention. "You're finally awake." A ripple of emotion appeared in his otherwise steady eyes. I asked, "Who are you?" The man froze. "You don't remember me?" I tried to recall, but my mind was completely blank. The more I tried to think, the more my head hurt. The man took my hand, his voice gentle. "Jennifer, it's okay if you can't remember. You just need to remember one thing. I'm your boyfriend." Boyfriend? Seeing the confusion in my eyes, his tone turned firm. "That's right, I'm your boyfriend." Chapter 7. The man's name was Hector. He showed me photos of the two of us. In them, a young boy and girl smiled sweetly at the camera. The man before me was much taller than the boy in the white shirt from the photos. His shoulders were broad, and his face had lost its youthful softness, becoming sharply defined. Yet his overall presence hadn't changed much. It still gave me a feeling as clean and pure as fresh snow. Only his eyes were different, deep and shadowed. But when he looked at me, his gaze was focused and gentle. There was something strangely contradictory about Hector, something I couldn't quite explain. He told me that I had fallen into the sea due to an accident and that he had saved me. He also said that my family had all passed away, and that I had been living with him. I felt puzzled. Why are all these photos from years ago? Because I was in a car accident and was in a coma for several years. Hector said softly, "During that time, you stayed by my side and took care of me without ever leaving. Now, it's my turn to take care of you." The words were simple, yet coming from him, they sounded like the most tender confession. My ears grew warm. It must have been really hard. Hector leaned down and gently embraced me. "You had it even harder. If I could, I'd rather suffer in your place." His cool, refreshing sense surrounded me. I realized I didn't feel the slightest resistance to his touch. My body even relaxed instinctively. The only part of me that could move, my cheek, lightly brushed against his. For some reason, I suddenly began to believe that he really was my boyfriend. Chapter 8. After I woke up, Hector stayed by my side the entire time, never leaving even for a moment, as if I were some precious treasure he had finally found again. "Hector, don't you have work?" Hector smiled. "My most important job is taking care of you," he said as he peeled an apple for me. "Also, you used to call me Hector." Tor? I thought calling him just by his name would feel awkward, but when I said it out loud, the tone came naturally, intimate, as if it had always been that way. I must have always called him like that before. After some more days, as my body recovered a little, I began rehabilitation training. Only then did I truly understand what Hector meant when he said, "You had it even harder." Rehabilitation couldn't simply be described as difficult, it was excruciating, even despairing. It felt like I was walking through a dark tunnel, with no idea where the end was. And Hector stayed by my side the entire time. He was that faint light guiding me forward. Repeated failures made me feel hopeless. At times, I even grew resentful toward the people around me who could only offer empty comfort. Once again, I fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. When Hector encouraged me to stand, anger and frustration overwhelmed me. Hector didn't understand how much pain I was in, how unbearable it all was. All he ever said was, "It will get better." I went through the same thing. I bit down on his arm. My teeth pierced through flesh, and an indescribable sense of release surged through me. Only when the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth did I realize what I had done. Flustered, I apologized to Hector, but he only gently kissed away my tears one by one. "Because it's you, Jennifer, you can do anything to me." His eyes were full of tolerance, as if no matter how badly I treated him, it would still be acceptable. Guilt filled my heart, for myself. And for him. I threw myself even more earnestly into rehabilitation. A year passed like this. At last, I could walk and run like a normal person again. On the day I was discharged, Hector proposed to me. Chapter 9. Of course, I said yes. I moved back with Hector into the place where we had once lived together. The moment I entered, the servants welcomed me warmly and familiarly. "Miss, welcome home. It's such a relief that you're all right. We've been so worried about your health." Their faces were unfamiliar, and I felt no sense of familiarity with the house either. I even had to ask a servant where the bathroom was. I told myself this was only natural. After all, I had lost my memory. Though the house felt strange, its decor was exactly to my taste. It was probably something I had arranged myself. And the servants were very familiar with me. They knew what I liked to eat and what I didn't. But when I entered the walk-in closet, that strange feeling surfaced again. In the spacious closet, more than half of the clothes belonged to me, while only a small portion belonged to Hector. Yet all of my clothes still had their tags on. They were completely new. There was no trace of me ever having lived here. Do you like these clothes? I had my secretary buy them according to your previous measurements. At some point, Hector had walked in, speaking suddenly. What about my old clothes? Hector replied. They were donated. You always preferred wearing the latest seasonal styles. You never kept old clothes from past seasons. Was I really that wasteful before? Do you not like them? I can take you shopping tomorrow to try on some more. Looking into Hector's gentle and concerned eyes, the doubts in my heart gradually disappeared, replaced even by a trace of guilt. From beginning to end, he had treated me so well. Even if my parents were still alive, they might not have treated me as well as he did. I shouldn't have doubted him. I'm sorry. Hector seemed to understand what I was thinking. He gently pulled me into his arms. His voice above my head remained soft. It's all right. You've lost your memory. It's normal to feel a bit sensitive. With my cheek resting against his chest, I could hear his heartbeat. It felt steady and reassuring. Chapter 10. Another 6 months passed, and Hector and I got married. I had no family, and Hector didn't seem particularly close to his either. In all the time we had been together, I had never once heard him mention his parents. Since he didn't bring it up, I tacitly chose not to ask. So, we decided on a destination wedding. Hector was a very gentle man, except when we were in bed. Behind those calm, unreadable eyes of his, there was a subtle possessiveness that was hard to detect. When I looked at him, he would softly kiss my tear-reddened eyelids. Don't look, this side of me isn't very pretty. In truth, Hector was still Hector. It just felt as though he had stepped down from some untouchable pedestal and entered the ordinary, worldly life. I didn't dislike this version of him. After all, he wasn't the only one who felt pleasure. Chapter 11. My married life with Hector was happy and peaceful. Hector started a company. Sometimes he was busy with work, sometimes more relaxed. As for me, before losing my memory, I seemed to have had quite a talent for music. Under the guidance of a violin master Hector hired for me, I picked up the violin again after having abandoned it for so long. Later, I joined an orchestra. A year into our marriage, we had a lovely daughter, Cindy. The three of us lived in harmony, full of warmth and laughter, until 2 years later, when Hector's father fell seriously ill. That very night, Hector had to return to the country. I could tell that Hector didn't want me to go back with him, but at the same time, he didn't want to leave me abroad either. He didn't want to be separated from me for too long. The accident I had suffered seemed to have left a deep shadow on him. He was terrified of losing me. Ever since I lost my memory, we had never been apart for more than 2 days. When I traveled with the orchestra for performances, he would accompany me. When he went on business trips, he would bring me along. Every time I finished work, Hector would always arrive right on time to pick me up. My colleagues would tease me. Jennifer, your husband is such a clingy sweetheart. In the end, when Hector returned to the country, he chose to bring Cindy and me along. As the plane landed, there was a brief sensation of weightlessness. An emptiness settled in my heart, as if something was about to slip out of control. Chapter 12. At the airport, Cindy wanted ice cream, so I took her to buy some first. Meanwhile, Hector went to collect the luggage. When I finished buying the ice cream and went to find Hector with Cindy, I saw him talking to a young man. I recognized this man. He was Hector's younger brother, Anthony. Before Hector decided to bring me back to the country, he had shown me a family album and introduced me to his relatives. He had specifically asked whether I had any impression of Anthony. I shook my head. Is he important to me? Hector closed the album and said casually, just someone insignificant. But remember, stay away from him. He's not a good person. At that moment, Anthony was smiling as he said, Bro, you finally decided to come back. Hector's tone, however, wasn't very friendly. Why are you the one here to pick us up? I thought to myself, Hector really didn't have a good relationship with his family. Considering Hector's gentle and harmless nature, it seemed likely that his family had done something to wrong him. Because of that, I couldn't help but feel a trace of hostility toward this younger brother I had only just met. I walked over to Hector's side. Anthony, who had been smiling and chatting with Hector, suddenly fixed his gaze on me. At first, he looked incredulous. Then, gradually, his eyes reddened. Jennifer. I knew you were still alive. When he noticed that I had linked arms with Hector and was holding a little girl's hand, his expression darkened instantly. Who are they to you? I looked at the unfamiliar man in front of me, puzzled. Sir, have we met before? His tone felt strange to me, as if Hector were some kind of illicit lover of mine. Chapter 13. You don't remember who I am? Hector answered for me. A few years ago, Jennifer had an accident and lost her memory. Shut up. Was I talking to you? I frowned. Hector was Anthony's older brother. How could he speak to him in such a tone? No wonder Hector rarely returned to the country before. Jennifer, my brother isn't usually like this, Hector said with an apologetic smile. He must have run into something upsetting today. Even now, Hector was still speaking up for his brother, but judging from the resentment in Anthony's gaze toward him, his brother clearly didn't appreciate it at all. I felt wronged on Hector's behalf. At that moment, Cindy suddenly spoke. Daddy, I want a hug. That voice struck Anthony like a bolt of lightning. The outcome he feared the most had just been confirmed. His face twisted with anger. Anthony grabbed Hector by the collar and threw a punch. Caught off guard, Hector staggered back a few steps. A glaring red mark appeared on his handsome face. Anthony moved to strike again, but I stepped in front of Hector. What are you doing? Are you crazy? You're yelling at me because of him? Anthony's eyes were filled with disbelief and a trace of hurt. That only made me think he was even more unreasonable. Hector was my husband. If I didn't stand up for him, was I supposed to defend the man who just hit my husband? Then Anthony looked at Hector behind me, as if suddenly realizing something. He demanded, Hector, you could have blocked that punch. Why didn't you? You let me hit you on purpose, just to make Jennifer feel sorry for you and hate me, didn't you? Grinding his teeth, he added, You're such a scheming manipulator. How can you be this calculating? The one who had done wrong was clearly Anthony, yet he twisted the situation and blamed Hector instead. I finally understood what it meant to completely distort the truth. I turned away, no longer sparing Anthony another glance. Taking out a handkerchief, I carefully wiped the blood from Hector's lips. We should have a doctor take a look later. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. How is it nothing? You're even frowning from the pain. Hector smiled helplessly. I'm sorry for making you worry. Nearby, Anthony's teeth ground audibly. Hector glanced at him, then took my hand. Jennifer, go sit for a while. I need to talk to Anthony. He treated you like that. What is there to talk about? Hector lowered his gaze and sighed softly. He is still my younger brother. If you really saw me as your brother, you wouldn't have. Hector lifted his eyes and gave Anthony a calm, almost indifferent look. It was as if invisible hands had gripped Anthony's throat. He couldn't say another word. Later, I didn't know what Hector said to him. Anthony left in a daze, looking like he was on the verge of tears. He almost seemed pitiful. Chapter 14. In the car, I asked Hector, what kind of relationship did I have with your brother before? He seemed very upset seeing me with you. He had a crush on you. He didn't expect that I would marry you behind his back and that we'd even have a daughter. I recalled his earlier violent expression, my brows knitting slightly. Even if I hadn't been with you, there would never have been any possibility between him and me. That's right, Hector said with a faint scoff. Someone like him doesn't deserve to be with you. He was usually gentle, but at that moment, there was an uncharacteristic sharpness in his tone. Chapter 15. After settling Cindy and me down, Hector went alone to visit his seriously ill father. I felt uneasy about it. Hector, I'm your wife. I should go with you to see your father. Hector replied calmly. The doctor said my father just had surgery and needs rest. When he recovers a bit, I'll take you to see him. What he said made sense, so I agreed. Before leaving, Hector placed a kiss on my forehead. Wait for me. Before going to sleep. I couldn't help but recall Anthony's emotional outburst at the airport that morning. I had a feeling that my relationship with him wasn't as simple as him having once had a crush on me. I took out my tablet and searched for information about Anthony online. He was a well-known wealthy heir, with plenty of gossip surrounding him. Most of the headlines were tied to a female celebrity named Susie. According to the internet, he once had a fiancée but broke up with her because of Susie. Then, for reasons unknown, he quickly broke up with Susie as well. Susie came from a good family and had entered the entertainment industry out of interest. Over the years, she hadn't focused much on her career and had remained entangled with Anthony. A toxic, ill-fated relationship. As for Anthony's former fiancée, there was no personal information about her online, as if it had been deliberately erased. I set the tablet aside, my dislike for Anthony deepening. So he was just another jerk. At the airport, after finding out I was married, he had put on that devastated expression. It was almost laughable. Just then, my phone rang. It was Hector. What are you doing? His usually gentle voice sounded slightly distorted over the phone. I glanced at the tablet beside me, where Anthony's gossip headlines were still displayed. I'm reading. For some reason, I instinctively hid the fact that I had been searching for news about Anthony. My intuition told me it was better not to bring this up to Hector. Hector reminded me gently. Don't read for too long. It's bad for your eyes. Okay. By the way, when you went to the hospital, did you take care of the injury on your lip? I did. Don't brush me off. When you come back, I'm going to check. Hector let out a soft laugh. All right, I'll be staying at the hospital tonight. Go to sleep first. You don't need to wait up for me. In the middle of the night, I was woken by loud noises coming from the front gate downstairs. I put on a coat and went down, only to see someone knocking on the door. The servants stood by the entrance, watching, but none of them opened it. Who's outside? It's young Master Anthony. Before the words had fully settled, Anthony's voice came from outside. Open the door! I have something very important to say to Jennifer. Chapter 16. Anthony's voice was slurred. As if he had been drinking, he kept pounding on the door, shouting loudly. Through the video doorbell, I saw a neighbor across the hall open their door to check what was happening. Let him in first. The servants looked troubled. Sir gave instructions. No one is allowed to come in and disturb your rest except him. I frowned. If Anthony keeps making a scene like this, he'll wake up all the neighbors. The servants insisted, somewhat unexpectedly. We've already called security, but it's raining heavily. There's a serious leak somewhere in the compound, and they're fixing it. Once they're done, they'll come over immediately. Seeing that I was about to say more, they continued. Madam, Sir is thinking of your safety. Second young master is drunk and not in his right mind. Who knows if he might hurt you? I understood their reasoning, but something still felt off. Hector cared about my safety. That was true, but Anthony was drunk, surrounded by servants. What harm could he possibly do to me? Besides, we had no grudges between us. He had no reason to hurt me. For a brief moment, I felt suffocated. It was as if I were a bird in a cage, well cared for, well protected, believing myself to be happy. But the moment the bird wanted to see the outside world, it realized it had no freedom at all. I knew I shouldn't think this way about Hector. After all, he had always treated me so well. But the thought still took root uncontrollably. A seed of doubt quietly fell, sprouting and growing, its vines spreading wildly, burrowing into my heart, bringing with it a fine, piercing pain. Suddenly, a rebellious urge rose within me. You won't open the door. Is that it? I pushed past the servants. Then I will. The door opened, caught off guard. Anthony was still in the motion of knocking. He stumbled forward into the house. Heavy rain poured outside. He was completely drenched, as if he had fallen, his clothes smeared with mud. He looked even more disheveled than he had during the day, like a soaked stray dog. When Anthony saw me, a flicker of joy crossed his eyes. Jennifer, you're finally willing to see me. Let me tell you, my brother is not a good person. I took a subtle step back. You came here drunk in the middle of the night just to badmouth Hector? No, my brother really isn't a good person. He's a complete liar. He's been enough. A cold, icy voice rang out from behind Anthony. Hector had returned. Chapter 17. Shouldn't you be at the hospital with father? And this is your excuse for trying to drive a wedge between Jennifer and me while I'm gone? Hector's expression darkened. Slowly, he unbuttoned his cuffs, revealing a clean, well-defined forearm. The next second, he grabbed Anthony by the collar. The fabric tightened around Anthony's throat, choking him. He was like a fish out of water, his face flushed red, his throat dry, gasping for air. Drunk and weak, he couldn't resist, only able to feebly slap at Hector's hand. Hector's expression remained calm, as if he were looking at a lifeless fish. He twisted his wrist slightly and threw a punch into Anthony's face. Again, and again. Anthony's face was soon covered in blood. Yet Hector showed no intention of stopping. It was the first time I had seen this side of him. Dark, violent, and coldly indifferent. The servants were all stunned by the chilling aura radiating from him. None dared step forward to intervene. When I finally snapped out of my shock, I hurriedly said, "Hector, stop! Your brother is going to be beaten to death." It was as if someone had pressed pause. Hector turned to look at me and gave a slightly apologetic smile. "Jennifer, I'm sorry I frightened you." Gentle, just like always. But I felt uneasy, a sense of confusion rising within me. How could someone switch so effortlessly between cruelty and tenderness? Did I really know the man beside me? Chapter 18. Hector dragged Anthony outside. The door closed behind them. His cold voice drifted faintly through. "I've wanted to do this for 5 years. Anthony, stop humiliating yourself. If there's a next time." The rest of his words were swallowed by the wind. Chapter 19. After that chaotic scene, I couldn't fall asleep again. I sat on the sofa by the window, feeling lost. Hector took a shower, washing away the blood on him, leaving only the familiar scent of the body wash I liked. Before walking over to me, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" I asked instead. "Weren't you supposed to stay with your father? Why did you come back?" "Because there was thunder. I was afraid of thunder." He had come back for me. The anger in my heart from earlier felt like a puffed-up pufferfish, but his simple words slowly deflated it. I felt a bit dejected. "Hector, I feel like I've never really known the real you. Did I scare you just now?" Hector looked at me. "Jennifer, the version of me you know is real because I care about you. I hide my darker side carefully and only show you my best. And if someone tries to destroy what we have, I don't mind using less gentle methods to deal with it." His expression was sincere. In those beautiful eyes, there was only my reflection. Everyone wants to show their best side to the person they love. Maybe he wasn't wrong. Hector continued softly. "Jennifer, don't be afraid. No matter what kind of person I am, I will always love you. I will never hurt you. What we have won't change because of me." The tension in my heart eased a little more. "Then what about what Anthony said, that you're hiding something from me?" "I don't know." My eyes widened slightly. "You don't know, and you still hit him?" He was definitely going to speak badly about me and try to drive us apart. Hector's slightly cool fingers brushed across my cheek, like something cold-blooded gliding over my skin, sending a shiver through me. "You saw it today. I'm not exactly a good person. Only when I'm with you am I a good person." "You, Before I could finish, his cool lips silenced me. "On a night like this, let's not talk about someone who ruins the mood." "All right, Jennifer?" His voice was low and husky. The way he said my name was filled with an indescribable intimacy, like being coated in sweetness, yet also trapped in a net woven from tenderness. Lost in his gentle persistence, my mind became a blur, unable to think clearly. I only vaguely remembered Hector lifting me into his arms, kissing me as he drew the half-open curtains closed, through the hazy curtain of rain outside. It seemed like there was someone kneeling downstairs, or maybe I was mistaken. Who would be foolish enough to stand outside in the rain in the middle of the night? Chapter 20. After Hector's father was moved out of the ICU, Hector took Cindy and me to meet him and Hector's mother. At first, the two elders looked at me with a hint of awkwardness, but as time passed, they seemed to grow accustomed to me, and their attitude towards Cindy and me gradually became more gentle. Hector's mother, in particular, removed the bracelet from her wrist and placed it on mine. It was said that this bracelet was meant to be passed down to a daughter-in-law. Hector has always been cold-natured and independent since he was young. He's never given us anything to worry about. Sometimes, we were afraid he might end up alone for life. Now that you're by his side, we can finally feel at ease. Before leaving, I ran into Anthony. His face was covered in bruises, his once handsome features now looking quite battered. Even his steps were slightly uneven, as if he were limping. That night, Hector had truly hit him hard. At that moment, Cindy insisted on drinking water, so Hector took her to buy something. I went to the restroom, leaving me alone. I called out to Anthony. His eyes lit up instantly. That night, you said Hector was hiding something very important from me. What is it? After all, we had once been so close. Even though Hector told me he had nothing to hide and that Anthony was just trying to smear him, I could still sense that Hector was hiding something from me. Anthony's gaze dimmed at once. You stopped me just to ask this? I nodded. Anthony closed his eyes in pain. Yesterday, Hector only had a small cut on his lip, and you were so worried. I've been beaten to this state, and you didn't even react. You weren't like this before. Jennifer, you used to care about me. Thinking of the things I had seen online about Anthony being a jerk, I replied bluntly. Then I must have been blind before. Anthony's expression grew even more pained. He let out a bitter laugh. I brought this upon myself. I pressed on. What were you trying to tell me that night? Anthony said. It was nothing. I was just drunk and making a scene. Sorry for disturbing you. Really? I looked at him carefully. Anthony avoided my gaze and forced a smile. It's true. I was about to walk past him. From not far away came a woman's coquettish voice. Anthony, slow down. Wait for me. When she reached me, she recoiled in shock, her face turning pale. Jennifer, are you a person or a ghost? It was Susie, the woman who had been entangled with Anthony for years. When I searched for Anthony online before, I had seen her information. Susie, shut up. Of course she's alive, Anthony said coldly. And can you stop clinging to me? Just looking at you makes me sick. Ignoring him completely, Susie broke down and screamed. Jennifer, you're alive. You're actually alive. Why are you alive? Hector frowned even more deeply. Susie, this is a hospital. Can you stop making a scene? I had no interest in getting involved in their messy relationship. I turned and left. At the corner, I saw Hector waiting for me. He took my hand. Jennifer, let's go. Hector, you saw me talking to your brother just now, I said, staring at his profile. Why aren't you worried today that he might speak badly about you? I don't want there to be any misunderstanding between us. If you have doubts about me, it's fine to ask my brother and clear them up, Hector said calmly. Besides, I haven't done anything to betray you. What do I have to be afraid of? He looked completely composed, as if he had nothing to hide. The more I thought about it, the more I felt, perhaps I had been overthinking everything. Chapter 21. A few days later, Mr. Law was discharged from the hospital. On the day of his discharge, he hosted a family banquet and Susie showed up as well. Anthony frowned. Why is she here too? Where are the servants? Get her out of here. Several servants hurried over to Susie. Miss, you can see that sir doesn't want you here. Please leave. Unwilling to accept it, Susie said. Anthony, you said you loved me. What right do you have to abandon me? What does Jennifer have that I don't? When she was dead, you couldn't forget her. Now that she's alive, are you going to? Shut up. Anthony glared fiercely at her, then quickly turned to me, explaining in a panic. Jennifer, don't listen to her nonsense. I broke things off with Susie 5 years ago. She's the one who's been clinging to me. For a moment, Susie's expression turned extremely unpleasant. She clearly hadn't expected that. Faced with her hysteria and persistence, Anthony's first reaction would be to explain himself to me. I felt confused. 5 years ago was the very year my accident happened, and it was also that same year that Anthony and Susie broke up. Was my accident somehow connected to them? Beside me, Hector had been silently listening the whole time. Only then did he speak. That's enough. This is between you and Miss Susie. Don't drag Jennifer into it. He cast them a light glance. That glance seemed effortless, yet it felt like a crushing weight pressing down on them. They fell silent. Unable to speak, Hector and I went to the living room. Even after walking some distance, I could still feel Susie's venomous gaze on me. I had a feeling she wouldn't let things go so easily. And sure enough, the day before Hector and I were to leave the country, Susie sent me a friend request. There was only one sentence attached. Jennifer, don't think you've won. From beginning to end, your so-called happy life is nothing but a complete lie. I accepted her request and asked what she meant. Susie invited me to meet at a cafe. I refused. I hadn't forgotten the hatred in her eyes that day. Curiosity kills the cat. The truth might be important, but I had already died once. My safety mattered more. I thought that since Susie hated me so much and couldn't stand seeing me happy, even if I didn't meet her, she would still tell me the so-called truth. And I was right. After I replied, "Say it or don't. I don't care." She sent me a file. "The truth you want to know is all inside." Reason told me this was a Pandora's box. Once opened, my current happiness might shatter completely. But I didn't want to live as a fool. So I opened the file. The truth that had been hidden for 5 years slowly unfolded before me. It turned out, my boyfriend had never been Hector. It had been his younger brother, Anthony. Back then, my fall into the sea wasn't an accident, it was a kidnapping. And when the kidnappers demanded ransom from Anthony, he was lost in Susie's embrace and chose to let me die. No wonder. When he was drunk, Anthony kept insisting he wanted to tell me the truth. But once sober, when I asked him what Hector was hiding, he chose to avoid the topic. He was afraid that if I learned the truth, I would hate him. And then there was Hector, the man closest to me, the one I trusted most, was also the one who had deceived me the deepest. I tightened my grip on my phone, so my seemingly perfect life was nothing more than a castle built on lies. And now, it was about to collapse. I didn't regret learning the cruel truth. Facing the pain of reality was better than living like a fool. After all, pain would eventually pass. Just like wounds, they would scab over and heal one day. Even if the process was agonizing, Hector walked into the room. He had already packed his luggage. Seeing me still sitting blankly on the sofa, he didn't blame me for not packing. Instead, he asked gently, "Jennifer, do you want me to help you pack?" He looked as gentle as always, but to me, the man before me suddenly felt utterly unfamiliar. "Hector," I called his name softly. "We need to talk." Chapter 22. I showed Hector the file Susie had sent me. He only glanced at it briefly before putting it down, his expression calm, as if he had long expected this day to come. "Hector, is there anything you want to explain?" He let out a soft sigh. "Jennifer, it's not something pleasant. It would have been better if you never remembered." I emphasized. "This is my life. I have the right to know the truth. You were severely injured back then. I was afraid that if you learned the truth, you would collapse completely. I wanted to wait until you recovered before telling you everything. Later, I developed selfish intentions. It felt good, having your world revolve only around me," Hector said calmly. "But I never intended to hide it from you forever. The day I brought you back to the country, I was already prepared for you to find out." Hector was unexpectedly honest, his gaze clear and steady. The words of reproach reached my lips, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. "So, what exactly am I to you?" Hector said that we had been childhood sweethearts, growing up together. If nothing had gone wrong, we would have eventually gotten married. On my birthday, he had planned to confess to me, but he got into a car accident and fell into a coma for 3 years. By the time he woke up, I had already become Anthony's girlfriend. He spent 2 years recovering and didn't intend to disturb our lives. Later, when he saw that I wasn't living well, he returned to the country and by chance, saved me. "Jennifer, I only guided you back onto the path you were meant to walk." My voice was soft. "You're that confident that if nothing had happened, I would have chosen you?" "We were meant to be," he said, his tone calm, yet with a faint hint of obsession beneath it. "I belong to you, just as you belong to me." "Jennifer, if you truly didn't like me, even if I told you I was your boyfriend, you wouldn't have stayed with me, would you?" That logic made sense, but it didn't change the fact that my so-called happiness had been built on lies. I pressed my lips together, my face pale. I need time to process all of this. All right, we can delay returning, Hector said gently, noticing my pale expression as he poured me a glass of honey water. Jennifer, I'm sorry. This time, I'm the one who hurt you. I turned my head away, avoiding his gentle gaze. I was afraid that if I looked at him, I might soften and forgive him too easily. Chapter 23. I arranged to meet Anthony at a cafe. Hector had deceived me flawlessly for 5 years. Even after his confession, I couldn't fully trust his words. The moment we met, I went straight to the point. Susie told me about our past. So, you know. Anthony gave a bitter smile. You must hate me now. No, I've already forgotten those things. There's no love or hate left. I said calmly. I just find you disgusting. For a moment, Anthony's face turned deathly pale. His voice was filled with bitterness. I overestimated myself. I'm not even worthy of being hated by you. I remained unmoved. A complete jerk. Where was all this emotion back then? Putting on this nauseating act of deep affection now. Who was it for? I took a sip of coffee. Can you tell me about what happened between Hector and me? Perhaps out of guilt. Anthony nodded. All right, I'll tell you everything I know. From Anthony. I confirmed that, this time, Hector hadn't lied to me, but from his words, I also learned something unexpected. Chapter 24. After getting the answers I wanted from Anthony, I was about to leave when he called out to me. What else is it? Anthony looked at me, hesitation in his eyes. He lowered his gaze and took a large gulp of coffee, as if making up his mind. Then he said, Jennifer, actually, this isn't the first time you've lost your memory. My eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? Anthony continued. Back then, my brother got into a car accident. His life was hanging by a thread. You were so worried that you became distracted. On your way to see him, you got into a car accident too. You weren't seriously injured, but there was a blood clot in your brain pressing on your nerves. You lost all memories related to my brother. I think your second memory loss was probably a complication from that earlier accident. That was when I took advantage of the situation. I pursued you for years and eventually succeeded. But I realized that even after losing your memory, your heart still belonged to my brother. You would cook his favorite dishes for me. Sometimes, you would unconsciously call me by his name. I was driven mad with jealousy, but there was nothing I could do. Later, I met Susie. She was a lot like you before you lost your memory, bright, passionate. More importantly, she liked me, so I let her get close. I thought what I liked wasn't you, but a type like you. But later, I realized I was completely wrong. You are you. You're irreplaceable. These past years, I've been in agony. I regret not saving you from the kidnappers. I've missed you so much. I can only rely on sleeping pills just to fall asleep. Jennifer. I'm sorry. Anthony covered his face, his expression filled with pain. Looking at him like this, I felt nothing. If anything, he seemed even more disgusting to me. I raised my hand and slapped him twice. Anthony, it's fine if you lie to me with words like that. But don't lie to yourself too. You were the one who deceived me in the beginning. You were the one who pursued me. And after getting me, you were the one who hurt me without restraint. Now you put on this act of regret and devotion. Who exactly are you trying to fool? Don't you find it ridiculous? Jennifer, I really regret it. After realizing my feelings, I broke things off with Susie. She's the one who kept clinging to me all these years. I cut him off with a cold laugh. If you really loved me, then when you heard about my death, you should have died with me. But look at you, you've been living just fine. Eating well, sleeping well. I lost my life. And what did you lose? Love? And now you think that by apologizing, I'll forgive you? Keep dreaming. I turned and walked away. Anthony was shaken by my words, his body swaying as if he might collapse. He tried to say something, but no words came out. And in that moment, I suddenly understood. Hector was different to me. Both of them had deceived me, yet I could slap Anthony without hesitation. But when it came to Hector, I calmly asked for an explanation. Perhaps, just as Hector had said, I loved him, before losing my memory, and after. Chapter 25. After leaving the cafe, I headed toward the parking lot. Suddenly, a car sped toward me. It was Susie driving. Her face was twisted with rage as she screamed for me to die. It all happened too fast. I had no time to dodge. Just as the car was about to hit me, Anthony rushed over and shoved me aside. My world spun violently. When I came back to my senses, Anthony was lying on the ground, covered in blood. As for Susie, who had completely lost control, her car had crashed into a pillar. The front crushed. She was trapped inside, unable to get out. When Susie realized she had hit Anthony, she began tearing at her hair like a madwoman. "Anthony, why did you save her? Do you love her that much?" Anthony coughed up mouthfuls of blood, yet he still smiled at me. "Jennifer, this time, I finally saved you." Chapter 26. Everything that followed was chaotic. Police cars, ambulances, voices and sirens all mixed together. Susie was taken away by the police, still cursing viciously for me to die. Anthony was rushed into the emergency room. I called Hector. It was hard to explain everything over the phone, so I only told him that Anthony was in the hospital and asked him to come quickly. Soon, Hector arrived. His expression was anxious as he grabbed my shoulders. "Jennifer, are you okay?" I shook my head. "I'm fine. Your brother is the one who's hurt. He saved me. As long as you're all right, that's all that matters. I was worried about you the whole way here." Hector pulled me into his arms, as if trying to press me into his very bones. His cheek brushed against my skin. It felt slightly cold, and his body trembled faintly. It was the first time I had ever seen him so shaken. Back when he accompanied me through rehabilitation, even when I had bitten his arm until it was torn and bloody, his expression had remained calm. He had only looked at me gently and asked, "Jennifer, do you feel a little better now?" After a long while, Hector regained his composure. Returning to his usual calm demeanor, he carefully asked about everything that had happened between me, Anthony, and Susie that day. I didn't hide anything. Even my earlier conversation with Anthony, I told him everything. A cold glint flashed in Hector's eyes. "So, that's how he used such despicable means to get together with you. You did the same." "That's different," Hector said softly, gently cupping my face, his gaze tracing every inch of it. "You love me, even if you lost your memory. Loving me is still your instinct, isn't it? With or without deception, we would have ended up together. So, Hector, let's make peace." He froze. "What?" "I forgive you, Hector." In that moment when Susie's car had been about to hit me, all I could think about was, if I died, what would happen to Hector and Cindy? In the end, I still loved Hector, whether it was before I lost my memory, or after. So why make things difficult for myself, or for him? Why waste the time we could still have together? There was only one thing I didn't understand. You didn't have to lie to me. At my lowest, darkest point, you were the one who pulled me out and stayed by my side for a whole year. At that time, you were the only light in my life. If you had confessed then, I would have said yes. Hector replied. "Jennifer, we already missed too many years. I didn't want to wait, and I didn't dare to gamble. I was wrong to deceive you, but I don't regret it, because he cared too much. He couldn't risk even the slightest chance of rejection. In the end," he said in an almost inaudible voice, "Jennifer, I'm not as good as you think I am." Chapter 27. Hector had once told Jennifer that after waking from his car accident and learning that she and Anthony were doing fairly well, he had no intention of disturbing their lives. In truth, Hector had never intended to let go. From the very moment he woke up, he had already begun planning how to take Jennifer back from Anthony, even if, at that time, Jennifer seemed to be living a relatively happy life by Anthony's side. But ideas like letting go, blessing, or stepping aside had never existed in Hector's world. Even marriage could end in divorce, let alone the fact that Jennifer and Anthony had only been dating. At that time, Hector didn't yet know that Jennifer had lost her memory, nor did he resent her for being with Anthony during his coma, even though for 3 whole years, she had never once come to see him. Jennifer was so good, surely it was Anthony who had stopped her. He believed that without a doubt. During the time he was recovering from his accident, he had been constantly keeping track of the woman he loved. Though he was abroad, the people Hector sent had taken countless photos of Jennifer's daily life and sent them to him. When Jennifer was kidnapped, It was also because of those people that he found out in time and managed to rescue her. Later, it was as if fate itself was on his side. Jennifer lost her memory. He got his wish, becoming her boyfriend, and eventually, her husband. In his eyes, his younger brother was simply foolish. If it had been him, he would never have betrayed Jennifer just because her heart held someone else. As long as he was the man by her side, that was enough. People should learn to be content. Excessive greed would only lead to ruin. If Jennifer ever developed feelings for someone else, then the blame lay with the man who had stolen her heart, and that man only needed to be quietly removed. Chapter 28. After the surgery, Anthony barely managed to survive, but his legs couldn't be saved. He was amputated. For the rest of his life, he would have to rely on a wheelchair. As for Susie, she was imprisoned for attempted murder. Outraged that Susie had reduced Anthony to such a state, retaliation followed. Her once powerful family gradually fell apart and soon went bankrupt. By the time Susie was released from prison, what awaited her would be a life of hardship. Chapter 29. Before leaving, I went to see Anthony. The once high-spirited wealthy heir was gone. He seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Strands of white hair appearing. There was a weariness in his eyes, and a hint of lifelessness. When he saw me, a flicker of light finally returned to his gaze. "You came to see me," he said awkwardly, pulling a blanket over his empty lower body. "Jennifer, I don't regret saving you. To me, as long as you're alive and well, nothing else matters," Hector said calmly. "That was something you should have done. If not for you, she wouldn't have been targeted by Susie in the first place." Anthony's expression dimmed. He let out a bitter laugh. "You're right. If it weren't for me, Jennifer wouldn't have suffered so much. It's all my fault. Jennifer, can you forgive the things I did in the past?" I looked away. It's all in the past. He had already ended up like this. There was no longer any question of forgiveness or not. Somewhere along the way, I had simply let it go. Chapter 30. After returning, my life with Hector returned to its former calm. One night after our marriage, memories from the past suddenly came flooding back. I dreamed of that birthday banquet, the year I learned that Hector had been in a car accident, his life hanging by a thread. I remembered how devastated and helpless I had felt. That day, I had already sensed that Hector was going to confess to me. I had carefully chosen my favorite dress, put on beautiful makeup, and even asked my friend to make sure to record what would be one of the most important moments of my life. But what I received was not Hector's confession. It was the news of his accident. My family background was complicated. After my mother passed away, my father remarried quickly, and my grandfather took me in. By then, I was already in my early teens and mostly lived at school, so I wasn't particularly close to my grandfather's family. Hector, however, had grown up with me. He was one of the most important people in my life. Despair, confusion, fear, so many emotions tangled together, leaving my mind in chaos. On that rainy night, when I drove to see Hector, I got into a car accident, and after that, I became entangled in that ill-fated relationship with Anthony. Hector was right. The lie he told me had only brought me back onto the path I was meant to walk. We should have been together long ago. "Jennifer, what's wrong?" Hector woke up and saw that I had turned on a small night light, sitting with my back to him. "Nothing, just a nightmare." My voice was muffled. Hector gently patted my back, as if comforting a child. "It's all right. I'm here." I turned around and wrapped my arms around him. "Yes, you're here. Everything was just right."